Real English for your daily life.
Master English together.
Quick question. How many times did your brain attack you last night before sleep?
If your mind turned into a tiny lawyer at 1 a.m., this episode is for you.
This is a B1 level episode, perfect for intermediate learners. Beginners, you're welcome too.
And here's the twist. The thing that feels huge at night often looks tiny in the morning.
You know that moment when you're in bed, the room is quiet, and suddenly one awkward sentence from lunch feels enormous?
Or you remember one message you sent, and your brain starts a full replay like it's the final scene of a movie.
Then your self-talk gets rough. It says, "Why did I say that?" Or "Everyone must think I'm so awkward."
And the problem is, your mind starts to replay one mistake until it feels like your whole day was a disaster.
That loop can feel so heavy. You start to feel overwhelmed, and even a small thing can seem huge and personal.
Right, and sometimes you don't just think, that was a mistake. You overreact to your own mistake and treat it like proof that you're failing.
Honestly, I once spent 20 minutes thinking about one clumsy text. 20 minutes. My brain deserved a performance review.
Mine too, and the weird part is, the same event can look totally different after a good night's sleep.
So tonight we're talking about why self-talk gets so harsh at night and how self-compassion can help you stop the spiral.
We'll also talk about the spotlight effect, which is the habit of thinking everyone notices your mistake as much as you do.
Spoiler, they usually don't. They're busy thinking about their own lives, their own inbox, and maybe their own awkward text from Tuesday.
Exactly. Your brain says this is a huge deal, but other people often say, wait, what happened again?
Stay with us for our word tour, 5 useful expressions you'll hear in real life and can use tonight.
And later, we'll give you one tiny trick for turning that harsh inner voice into something fairer. But first, let's unpack the nighttime spiral.
Let's stay with that nighttime scene. The lights are off, the room is quiet, and your brain suddenly opens every old tab at once.
Exactly. And the first tab is usually self-talk. That prided voice saying, you were awkward, you were slow, you messed up again.
And because it's quiet, that voice sounds louder than it really is. One tiny mistake starts to feel like a full personality report.
Right. And then you start to replay the moment. Not once, not twice, but 10 times, like your mind is stuck on repeat.
I used to do this after every meeting. If I said one sentence badly, I'd lie there and replay the whole conversation line by line.
And your brain always edits the scene into a worse version, right? By midnight, your normal sentence becomes a courtroom confession.
Exactly. I'd think, why did I say that? Then they must have noticed. Then I'm terrible at this. And suddenly I'd feel overwhelmed from one tiny comment.
That's a good example of how overwhelm works at night. Not because the event got bigger, but because your mind kept adding weight to it.
It's like carrying one grocery bag, then imagining there are 20 more inside it. Your body is in bed, but your thoughts are doing heavy lifting.
And the scary part is that the body believes the thoughts. Your chest tightens, your stomach drops, and the whole evening starts to feel unsafe.
You're not weak for that. You're human, and your brain is trying to protect you by scanning for danger, even when the danger is just embarrassment.
That's where the spotlight effect comes in. We assume everyone saw our mistake, remembered it, and filed it away as important.
But most people are not tracking us that closely. They're usually thinking about food, deadlines, messages, and their own weird moments from the day.
Exactly. Your brain is holding a Zoom meeting about one awkward text, while everyone else has already left the building.
Let's make it concrete. Imagine you posted the wrong photo in a group chat or sent a message to the wrong person.
At 2 p.m., you might say, "Oops, that's annoying." At 11 p.m., it becomes, "Everyone saw it. I'm so embarrassing. I overreacted. I should disappear."
That jump is so familiar. The event didn't change, but the emotional lens did. And that lens gets harsher in silence.
And once the mind starts replaying, it rarely asks fair questions. It asks dramatic ones like, "What if they think I'm careless forever?"
That question sounds convincing at night, but in daylight it usually sounds a lot less powerful.
Daylight is basically a fact checker. Nighttime is the creative writer who thinks every typo deserves a sequel.
Let's do a tiny check-in. If your friend sent the same mistaken message, would you say you ruined everything?
Probably not. You'd say, "It's fine, they'll survive. Just fix it tomorrow." That's self-compassion in plain language.
And self-compassion doesn't mean pretending the mistake never happened. It means speaking to yourself like someone you actually care about.
Right. And that matters because harsh self-talk rarely improves anything. It usually just adds shame, and shame makes the mind even noisier.
When shame shows up, the mind can feel overwhelmed, and then the smallest detail becomes proof that something is wrong with you.
But the detail is not the whole story. It's one moment, one choice, one imperfect second in a long day.
Here's the real trap. The more you fight the thought, the stronger it feels. You say, "Stop thinking about it," and your brain says, "Great idea. Let's think harder."
That's such a rude little brain trick. It's like telling someone not to picture a pink elephant, and then acting surprised when the elephant arrives.
So instead of wrestling the thought, we notice it, we name it, we step back from it.
For example, instead of "I'm a disaster," you can say, "I'm having a harsh self-talk moment." That small shift creates space.
Space matters because it turns a feeling into an observation. Suddenly, the thought is something you're noticing, not something that defines you.
And that's powerful at night because night makes thoughts feel absolute, but absolute doesn't mean accurate.
Yes, and the spotlight effect makes those thoughts even louder because you imagine a giant neon sign over your mistake.
Meanwhile, everyone else is just trying to find their keys, answer email, and survive their own schedule.
So if I send the wrong file, my brain says they'll never forget this.
And a more balanced thought is, they probably notice, but they're not obsessed with it. I can fix it and move on.
That's such a calmer sentence. It doesn't erase responsibility, but it stops the emotional overreaction.
Exactly. Overreacting turns a small glitch into a moral verdict. A mistake is an event, not a definition.
My brain loves to promote an event into an identity. One typo becomes, "You're hopeless." Dramatic, but not very useful.
Very dramatic. Your brain deserves an award for bad screenwriting.
Let's try a real-life version. Imagine you forgot to reply to someone. At night, your mind says, "They think I'm rude."
The fairer version is, "I forgot. I can reply tomorrow. One missed message doesn't cancel my character."
That's the kind of sentence we want. Not fake positivity, just fairer thinking.
And fair thinking often starts with one simple question. What would I say to a friend?
Because if a friend said, "I said something awkward in a meeting," you wouldn't tell them to be ashamed forever.
You'd probably say, "Everyone has awkward moments. Give yourself a break." That's not softness without strength. That's realistic kindness.
And if you need a practical move tonight, do this. When the replay starts, pause and say, "This is just my mind replaying."
Then ask, What are 3 fair facts? Maybe I made a mistake. People moved on. I can repair it tomorrow.
Notice how much calmer that sounds. It's still honest, but it's not cruel.
Exactly, you're not arguing with reality. You're removing the extra drama your brain added.
And that's the heart of self-compassion here. It says, I'm allowed to be imperfect without being punished by my own thoughts.
Beautifully said. Imperfection is part of being alive, and a bad night doesn't have to become a bad identity.
Also, your brain at 1 a.m. is not a reliable judge. It's tired, emotional, and weirdly convinced it knows everything.
A tired brain is basically a dramatic intern with full access to your worst memories.
So if your self-talk gets harsh tonight, remember, the feeling is real, but the verdict is not.
And if you can catch the first replay, you can stop the whole movie before the credits roll.
And by the way, there is a phrase for this. We'll break it down later in our word tour.
Right now, just keep this in mind. The story your mind tells at night is often louder than it is true.
So we know the night spiral is real. But I want to push back on one idea before we move on.
Go on. Because I think a little self-criticism can be useful, and maybe even necessary.
Useful, yes. But at night, it often turns cruel. There's a difference between honest reflection and harsh self-talk that keeps you awake.
But if you're too gentle, won't you just excuse everything? I don't buy the idea that kindness always helps.
I'm not talking about excuses. I'm talking about accuracy. And accuracy is what harshness usually destroys.
Still, if you replay a mistake enough, you can learn from it. If you never replay it, maybe you forget and do it again.
That sounds logical, but there's a line. One careful replay can help you learn. 50 mental reruns just create overwhelm and make you feel worse.
50 is a bit much, sure. But people don't spiral for fun. They do it because they're trying not to mess up again.
Exactly, and that's why compassion matters. When your mind says, I'm stupid, it doesn't make you smarter. It usually makes you freeze.
Freeze for a minute, maybe, but pressure can also motivate people. A harsh inner voice can push you to improve faster.
Sometimes, but not reliably. If your self-talk is full of attack, your brain stops problem-solving and starts defending itself.
I still think discomfort has value. If you feel bad enough, you'll remember not to make the same mistake.
That's missing the whole picture. Remembering is not the same as repairing, and shame often blocks both.
But what if a person needs that sting? What if a soft response makes them overconfident and careless?
Then the answer isn't cruelty. The answer is clear feedback. You can say, that didn't work without saying, I'm a failure.
Okay, but people do overreact to small mistakes all the time. If you don't call that out, won't they keep doing it?
Calling it out is fine. Calling someone broken is not. A small mistake can become huge in the mind, especially when the spotlight effect kicks in.
So you're saying the brain exaggerates the audience.
Exactly. You think every eye is on you, but most people are busy with their own lives. Your mistake feels global to you, local to them.
That does make sense, but I've also seen people avoid real responsibility by saying, everyone makes mistakes, and then doing nothing.
That's fair, and I'm not defending avoidance. I'm defending a better sequence. Notice the mistake, repair it, then stop attacking yourself for hours.
So you'd still keep accountability just without the emotional punishment?
Yes. Accountability says, I need to fix this. Shame says, I am this. Those are not the same sentence. Not even close.
I can see that. But people often say they've learned from mistakes only after feeling awful.
They probably learned from reflection, not from self-attack. Pain was there, sure, but pain doesn't automatically equal growth.
Maybe, but if someone is too quick to give yourself a break, doesn't that become an escape hatch?
Only if it means I don't care. Real self-compassion says, I care enough to be honest and kind enough to stay useful.
That's a better distinction than I expected. Still, I worry people will hear kindness and become lazy about improvement.
Then let's make it practical. After a mistake, ask 2 questions. What happened? And what would I say to a friend?
That's it? 2 questions?
Not magic. Just enough to interrupt the loop. If your answer to the friend question is kinder than your inner voice, you found the problem.
Okay, that's useful. But what about the person who really did mess up badly? Not a tiny typo, something more serious.
Even then, harsh self-talk doesn't clean it up. It can lead to overwhelm, avoidance, and more mistakes because the mind gets overloaded.
So you're saying overwhelm is the enemy of repair?
Often, yes. When people feel overwhelmed, they don't think clearly. They either freeze, overreact, or disappear into guilt.
That sounds like a very bad trio. Freeze, overreact, disappear. The brain's least favorite band.
Exactly. And if you want a better result, you need a calmer inner voice, not a louder one.
So the practical goal isn't to become unrealistically positive, it's to become fair.
Yes. Fair means you can say, I messed up, without adding, and now I should be ashamed until Friday.
Friday is a long sentence for one text message.
It really is. And if the night voice says, everyone saw, you can answer, maybe not. And even if they did, this is still fixable.
That's stronger than denial, because it keeps both truth and kindness.
Exactly. And that's why self-compassion works better than punishment for most people. Punishment may feel productive, but it usually just drains you.
All right, I'm convinced enough to admit the harsh voice isn't as helpful as it pretends to be.
Good. And notice, I'm not asking you to delete accountability. I'm asking you to stop turning one mistake into a personal trial.
Fair enough. If the goal is growth, then the inner voice has to help, not wound.
Exactly. And next, we're going to pull out the 5 phrases that showed up in this story and make them easy to use.
So stay with us, because our word tour is where this all becomes really practical.
So we've seen the problem, the spiral, and the bigger picture. And now it's time to make the language useful.
Right, because the story gave us 5 phrases that show up in real life, especially when your brain gets loud at night.
In our word tour, we'll break them down with simple meanings, quick examples, and the exact feel each one has.
And once you hear them in context, they won't feel like vocabulary. They'll feel like tools.
So, after all that nighttime drama, let's look at the words we kept circling around, because they're very useful in real life.
And the first one is the private voice in your head. Self-talk. It's the way you speak to yourself in your mind.
Right, and that voice can be kind, neutral, or brutal. If it says, I'm learning, that's one kind of self-talk. If it says, I'm hopeless, that's a much harsher version.
You can hear the difference immediately. One helps you move. The other just traps you in the same emotional room.
In our story, the harsh voice was the one saying, everyone saw that. I'm so embarrassing. That's self-talk too.
And if you want a quick example, you might say, my self-talk was really harsh last night. That sounds natural and clear.
Nice. Now, the next word is the one we use for watching the mistake again and again. Replay.
Yes, the brain's favorite bad habit. To replay means to think about an event again and again, like your mind is pressing rewind.
You can even use it in a simple sentence. I kept replaying the meeting. Short, easy, and very real.
Or, "Don't replay that text all night." That sounds like something a friend would actually say.
And notice the feeling around it. When you replay something too much, you're not learning anymore. You're just wearing a groove into the same worry.
Exactly. A little replay can be useful. Too much replay just keeps the wound open.
That brings us to overwhelm. This one shows up when your thoughts, feelings, and body all start piling on at once.
Right. To overwhelm means to feel too much emotion or too many thoughts at once. It's like your brain has too many windows open and one of them is playing music.
That image is painfully accurate. You might say, I felt overwhelmed after the message, or the whole situation overwhelmed me.
And in the episode, that mattered because the mistake itself was small, but the mental reaction got huge. That's what overwhelm does.
Yes, and when people feel overwhelmed, they often stop thinking clearly. They don't need more pressure. They need a calmer inner voice.
That's why harsh self-talk makes everything worse. It doesn't shrink the problem. It just makes the person feel smaller.
Now for overreact. A very human word, honestly.
Very human and very useful. To overreact means to react in a way that's too strong for the situation.
So, if you send one awkward message and then decide your whole day is ruined, that's overreacting.
You could say, I think I overreacted last night. That's honest. And it doesn't sound dramatic in a bad way.
Or, my brain overreacted to a tiny mistake. That's even more specific.
And that distinction matters, because it helps you separate the event from the emotional explosion around it.
Exactly. And that leads us to the kindest phrase in today's episode. Give yourself a break.
This means to be kinder to yourself and stop judging yourself so hard. It doesn't mean ignore everything. It means stop being so brutal.
You can say, I need to give myself a break tonight. Or, I'm trying to give myself a break after that mistake.
And that sounds natural because it matches the emotion of the moment. It's not fake positivity, it's fair treatment.
Let's put them together in a tiny nighttime scene. My self-talk is harsh, so I keep replaying the message. Then I feel overwhelmed. Then I overreact. And I need to give myself a break.
That is basically the whole episode in one sentence. It's long but very true.
And if you want an even shorter version, you could say, my self-talk got mean, and I need to give myself a break.
Nice. Or I'm replaying it too much and it's making me overwhelmed. That's clear, natural, and easy to say out loud.
The point is, these phrases are not just vocabulary items. They're ways to talk about real emotional moments without sounding stiff.
Right. And when you can name the feeling, it gets a little less powerful. That's why language matters so much here.
So tonight, if your brain starts the same old loop, try one of these phrases instead of the harsher version.
And notice how much calmer it feels when the sentence sounds fair, not punishing. That's the shift we wanted.
So the big idea is simple. Night makes the same mistake feel 10 times bigger.
And once the replay starts, self-talk usually gets harsher, not wiser.
The good news is, that story isn't the truth. It's just a tired brain talking.
Right. And next we'll turn those ideas into 5 useful phrases you can actually use.
Stay with us, because this part is where the episode becomes practical.
And maybe a little easier on your brain, which honestly deserves a break.